What happens when Hollywood's most misunderstood icon sits down with one of daytime television's sharpest tongues and refuses to play the game everyone expects her to play? What we witnessed wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a masterclass in standing your ground. A collision between two women who have spent decades being told who they should be. And what unfolded was so intense, so raw, that producers had no choice but to pull the plug mid. Before we get into exactly what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on after you hear this whole story. Because trust me, you're going to have opinions. The studio audience was buzzing with that pre-show energy. The kind you only get when someone unexpected is about to sit at the table. Pamela Anderson walked onto the set looking completely different from what people remembered. No makeup. Hair pulled back simply. Wearing a crisp white button-down and black trousers. The audience applauded, some standing. And she smiled genuinely, waving as she took her seat between Whoopi Goldberg and Sarah N. Joy. Behar leaned forward immediately, that familiar smirk already forming. Pamela, welcome back to The View. I have to say, you look so different from the last time we saw you. Very natural. Very bare. Thank you, Pamela said calmly. I feel more like myself than I have in years. Joy nodded, but there was something sharp in her eyes. So, this is part of your whole new image rebrand thing, right? The no makeup, stripped down look. Very strategic. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably. Joy, I think she's just being herself. No, it's fine, Pamela said, her voice steady. But you could hear the slight edge creeping in. Joy has a point. People do think everything is strategic when you've been in the public eye as long as I have. But to answer your question, Joy, no. This isn't strategy. This is just me finally deciding I don't owe anyone a performance anymore. Joy laughed. That sharp bark of a laugh. Come on, Pamela. Your entire career has been a performance. The Baywatch thing. The Tommy Lee thing. The whole blonde bombshell persona. You built an empire on performance. I built a career on what people projected onto me, Pamela corrected. And the temperature in the room shifted. There's a difference between choosing your image and having one forced on you, then being judged for it for 30 years. Sarah jumped in, trying to soften things. Your documentary really showed a different side of you, Pamela. A lot of vulnerability. Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot. But Joy wasn't done. See, here's what I don't understand. You spent decades playing into this sexbot image, making millions off of it. Playboy. The videos. The outfits. Now you want us all to take you seriously as this deep, intellectual, misunderstood artist. You can't have it both ways. The audience went quiet. Sunny Hostin's eyes went wide. Alyssa Farah Griffin stopped mid-sip of her coffee. Pamela didn't blink. Why can't I have it both ways, Joy? Why do I have to be one thing forever? You've reinvented yourself multiple times in your career. You went from comedian to political commentator to talk show host. Nobody questions your right to evolve. That's different, Joy shot back. How is it different? Because I didn't build my career on my looks. The words hung in the air, like a grenade with the pin pulled. Whoopi immediately reached for her cards. Okay, let's take a breath here. But Pamela wasn't backing down. Her voice remained calm, almost eerily so. So because I was born beautiful. Because men and women objectified me from the time I was a teenager. Because photographers and directors and producers told me my value was in my body. I don't get to grow. I don't get to say that maybe I was uncomfortable with all of that. That maybe I was just trying to survive in an industry. That would have chewed me up and spit me out if I didn't play along. Joy leaned back, arms crossed. Oh, here we go. The victim narrative. You made choices, Pamela. Nobody forced you to pose for Playboy 7 times. You're right, Pamela said. And her voice got quieter, which somehow made it more powerful. I made choices, and I'm not ashamed of them. But you sitting here, another woman, judging me. For choices I made in my 20s. Choices I made to feed my children. Choices I made because at the time, I didn't know I had other options. That's the problem, Joy. That's exactly the problem. Sunny tried to redirect. I think what's important is that women should support other women's journeys, no matter what path they took to get where they are. I agree completely, Pamela said, still locked on Joy, which is why I'm confused about why I'm being attacked right now. Attacked? Joy laughed again, but it sounded forced. I'm asking you questions. This is what we do here. We ask the tough questions. No, Joy. You're asking judgmental questions. There's a difference. You're not curious about my journey. You're making assumptions about my motivations and my intelligence, based on what I looked like in a red swimsuit 3 decades ago. That's not fair, Joy protested. Isn't it? Pamela's composure was remarkable. The audience was dead silent now, every eye ping-ponging between the two women. Since I sat down, you've called my appearance strategic, dismissed my career as just performance, suggested I'm trying to have it both ways, and implied that because I was beautiful, and used that beauty, I somehow deserve less respect than women who didn't. Am I misunderstanding something? Alyssa finally spoke up. I think maybe we should hear more about what Pamela's working on now. The activism work you've been doing is really impressive. But Joy cut her off. No, I want to address this. Pamela, if you're saying that I'm being unfair to you, then let me ask you this. Do you regret any of it? The Playboy, the tape with Tommy, that you sued to stop, but somehow made you more famous. Any of it? Pamela's jaw tightened. You could see her taking a breath, choosing her words carefully. That tape was stolen from my home, Joy. It was a private moment between me and my husband. That was stolen, copied, and distributed without my consent. That wasn't me making myself more famous. That was a violation. And the fact that you just casually mentioned it as if it was some career move tells me everything I need to know about how you see me. The audience gasped. Someone actually gasped out loud. Joy's face went red. I didn't mean it like that. Didn't you, though? Pamela's voice was still controlled, but there was steel underneath, because that's what people have done for 25 years. They've blamed me for my own violation. They've suggested I somehow benefited from one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. And women like you, Joy, women who should understand what it's like to be reduced and dismissed. You perpetuate it. Whoopi put her hand up. Ladies, I think we need to. No, Whoopi, Pamela said, turning to her. I appreciate you trying to keep the peace, but I need to say this. I've spent my whole life being quiet, being nice, laughing off insults, letting people like Joy here make jokes at my expense because that's what good girls do. That's what pretty girls do. We're supposed to smile and take it and be grateful anyone's paying attention to us at all. I'm done with that. Joy threw her hands up. I'm not your enemy here, Pamela. I'm a feminist. I've spent my career fighting for women's rights. Have you? Pamela asked. The question landed like a slab. Because from where I'm sitting, you're doing exactly what men have done to me my entire career. You're deciding that because of how I look, because of choices I made with my own body, I'm somehow less than. That my pain isn't real. That my growth isn't valid. That's not feminism, Joy. That's just judgment wearing a feminist hat. Sarah tried again. I think what's important here is that we're having this conversation. This is what The View is about. Different perspectives, difficult conversations. But it's not a conversation, Pamela countered, her eyes still on Joy. A conversation requires two people listening to each other. What this is an interrogation. What this is Joy deciding who I am and what I represent before I even open my mouth. You know what you didn't ask me, Joy? You didn't ask me about my activism work in animal rights. You didn't ask me about my foundation. You didn't ask me about my children, or my writing, or anything that might suggest I'm a human being with depth and complexity. You went straight for the jugular. You went straight for the parts of my past that you could weaponize against me. Joy's voice got louder. Because that's your story, Pamela. That's what people know you for. That's what people like you keep me trapped in, Pamela fired back, her voice rising to match Joy's. You know what the difference is between me and you, Joy? I've evolved. I've grown. I've looked at my past and I've learned from it. I've had therapy. I've done the work. I've faced my demons and my mistakes and I've come out the other side a better person. But you're still sitting here in your same chair, making the same judgments, asking the same tired questions, thinking you're some kind of truth teller when really you're just mean. The audience started murmuring. Sunny looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Alyssa was frozen. Joy stood up. Actually stood up. Mean? You think I'm mean? Pamela stood up too. Yes, Joy, you're mean. You hide behind this persona of telling it like it is. But really you just tear people down to make yourself feel superior. And the sad part is you do it to women more than anyone. You do it to women who don't fit your narrow definition of what a feminist should look like or how she should have lived her life. That is completely unfair. Joy's voice was shaking. Now I have supported countless women on this show. Women who fit your mold, Pamela said. Women who made the choices you would have made. Women who climbed the ladder the way you think it should be climbed. But women like me. Women who took a different path. Women who used what they had to survive in a world that valued them for one thing. You have nothing but contempt for us. Whoopi stood up now too. Okay, we need to take a commercial break. No, Joy said. No, we're finishing this. Pamela, you come on my show and accuse me of not being a real feminist. You, who built a career on being a sex symbol, you're going to lecture me about feminism. Yes, Joy, I am, Pamela said, and her voice cracked just slightly. The first sign of real emotion breaking through. Because feminism is supposed to be about choice. It's supposed to be about women having the freedom to live their lives on their own terms without judgment. But you don't practice that. You practice selective feminism. You support the women who make you comfortable, and you tear down the women who challenge your worldview. Joy pointed at her. You don't get to come on this show and make this about me. You made it about me the second I sat down, Pamela shot back. You made it about my looks, my past, my choices. I'm just turning the mirror around, Joy. How does it feel? How does it feel to be judged and reduced and told you're not good enough? This is ridiculous, Joy said, looking around at her co-hosts for backup. Are you hearing this? Sunny spoke carefully. I think both of you are coming from places of hurt, and maybe we should all just take a breath. I'm not hurt, Joy insisted. I'm angry. I'm angry that I'm being attacked for asking legitimate questions. They weren't legitimate questions, Pamela said, her voice dropping back down to that eerily calm tone. They were traps. Every single one was designed to make me defensive, to make me explain myself, to make me justify my existence to you. And I'm done doing that. I'm done explaining myself to people who have already decided who I am. Joy sat back down heavily. Fine. Fine, Pamela. You want to know what I really think? I think you spent your whole career profiting off the male gaze. And now that you're older and that currency doesn't spend the same way anymore, you're rebranding as this deep, thoughtful person. And maybe that's real. Maybe it's not. But forgive me for being skeptical. The room went dead. Silent. Even the crew behind the cameras had stopped moving. Pamela stared at Joy for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but every word landed like a hammer. You just proved my point better than I ever could have. You just reduced my entire journey of growth and self-discovery to me aging out of fuckability. Do you hear yourself? Do you hear how cruel that is? How small? I didn't mean, Joy started. Yes, you did, Pamela interrupted. You meant exactly that. And that's fine. That's who you are. But don't call yourself a feminist, Joy. Don't pretend you're fighting for women when you're standing on the backs of women like me to make yourself feel taller. Joy's face had gone from red to almost purple. Get off my show. Excuse me? Pamela said. You heard me. Get off my show. You don't get to come here and insult me on national television. Whoopi immediately interjected. Joy, it's not your show. It's our show. I don't care, Joy snapped, not taking her eyes off Pamela. I'm not sitting here and being called a bad feminist by someone who made millions taking her clothes off. Pamela laughed, but it was a bitter sound. There it is. There's the real Joy Behar. When you can't win the argument, you go for the cheap shot. You go right back to shaming me for my body, for my choices, for my past. You're not angry because I insulted you, Joy. You're angry because I told the truth and you can't handle it. Alyssa tried to speak. Maybe we should all just... No, Joy cut her off. No, I want her gone. Someone get a producer. I want her escorted out. The audience was in chaos now. Some people were booing. Some were clapping. Nobody knew what was happening. This had never happened before on The View. Guests didn't get kicked off mid-show. Pamela picked up her water glass, took a slow sip, and set it down carefully. I'll leave, Joy. I'll leave because clearly you can't handle having your worldview challenged. But before I go, I want to say something to everyone watching at home. Pamela, maybe we should just... Sarah started. But Pamela held up her hand. No, I need to say this. I've stayed quiet for too long. She turned to look directly at the camera. If you're a woman who's made choices that other women judge you for, I see you. If you're a woman who's been told you can't be both beautiful and smart, both sexual and serious, both a mother and a career woman, I see you. If you're a woman who's been reduced to one thing your entire life, and you're finally trying to be everything you really are, I see you. And Joy Behar not being able to handle this conversation? That's not about me. That's about her. Joy stood up again. That's it. Security, please. Whoopi put her face in her hands. Sunny was shaking her head. The camera operators were looking at each other, clearly getting instructions through their headsets. Pamela turned back to Joy, and her composure was remarkable considering she was being thrown off a live television show. You know what's sad, Joy? I came here with an open heart. I came here hoping to have a real conversation about growth and change and what it means to be a woman in this industry across different generations. But you couldn't do it. You couldn't see past your own biases and judgments. And that's a shame, because we could have had something meaningful here. Meaningful? Joy scoffed. You want meaningful? Try not insulting your host when you're a guest on someone's show. I told you the truth, Pamela said simply. If you experience truth as an insult, maybe that tells you something about yourself that you need to examine. A producer appeared from offstage, looking absolutely panicked. He whispered something to Whoopi, who nodded grimly. He then approached Pamela. Before he could say anything, Pamela held up her hand. I know I'm leaving. I'm going. She unclipped her microphone and set it on the table. Then she turned to the other hosts. Sarah, Sunny, Alyssa, Whoopi, thank you for trying to keep this civil. I appreciate you. She deliberately did not look at Joy as she gathered her bag. But then, right before she turned to leave, she stopped and looked back at Joy one more time. You know what I hope, Joy? I hope someday you realize that tearing other women down doesn't make you bigger. It just makes the room smaller for all of us. I hope you figure that out before you run out of women to judge. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She just stood there, shaking, with rage or maybe something else. It was hard to tell. Pamela walked off the stage with her head high. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent, so a scattered, confused clapping followed her exit. The camera stayed on the hosts, all of them looking shell-shocked except Joy, who was staring at the spot where Pamela had been sitting. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice heavy. We're going to take a commercial break. No, we're not, Joy said. I have something to say. Joy, Whoopi warned. I have something to say, Joy repeated louder. She looked into the camera. What you just witnessed was a guest who came on this show with an agenda, who came here to make herself look like a victim and make me look like a villain. And I'm not going to apologize for asking hard questions. That's my job. That's what I do. Sunny spoke softly. Joy, I don't think that's what happened. Of course you don't, Joy snapped. None of you do. You're all too worried about being politically correct, about not offending anyone. Well, I'm not. I asked Pamela Anderson legitimate questions about her career and her choices, and she couldn't handle it, so she made it personal. She attacked me personally. Alyssa cleared her throat. With respect, Joy, I think she was responding to some pretty personal attacks from you. Joy whipped around to face her. Excuse me? The comment about her aging out of relevance, Alyssa said quietly. That was below the belt. I didn't say that, Joy protested. You did, Sarah confirmed. You said she was rebranding because the male gaze doesn't work for her anymore. That's pretty harsh, Joy. Joy looked around the table at her co-hosts and you could see something cracking in her expression. So you're all on her side now. After everything I've done for this show, for women in media, you're taking her side. It's not about sides, Whoopi said firmly. It's about recognizing when a conversation went off the rails. And Joy, this went off the rails. We need to go to commercial. We need to regroup. And we need to figure out how to finish this show with some dignity. Dignity, Joy repeated, and she laughed, but it was shaky. Fine. Go to commercial. Do whatever you want. The cameras finally cut away, and producers were scrambling. What had just happened was unprecedented. A guest kicked off the View mid-show. Co-hosts turning on each other. Raw emotions spilling out across daytime television. Social media was already exploding. Clips were being uploaded in real time. Hashtag Pamela Anderson and hashtag JoyBear were trending before the commercial break even ended. When the show came back from commercial, Joy's seat was empty. Whoopi addressed the camera alone. We've had an unusual show today. As you all witnessed, sometimes conversations get heated. Sometimes people say things in the moment that come from a place of passion. What's important is that we continue to have these difficult conversations, even when they're uncomfortable. Pamela Anderson, if you're watching, thank you for being willing to speak your truth, even when it was hard. And to our audience, thank you for sticking with us through a very real, very raw moment of television. She didn't mention Joy. Nobody did for the rest of the show. What you just witnessed wasn't just a celebrity meltdown or a daytime television drama. It was something deeper. It was a confrontation between two different kinds of feminism, two different generations, two different ways of moving through the world as a woman. Pamela Anderson came to that table ready to be vulnerable, to share her journey, to connect. Joy Behar came to that table with assumptions and judgments already locked and loaded. And when those two forces collided, something had to give. The question isn't really who was right or who was wrong. The question is, why are we still doing this to each other? Why are women still required to justify their past choices to other women? Why is growth and evolution met with skepticism instead of celebration? Why does being beautiful mean you can't also be deep? Why does making one set of choices mean you're not allowed to make different ones later? Pamela walked off that stage, but she walked off with her dignity intact. She said what needed to be said, even knowing it would cost her. That takes courage. That takes strength. Whether you agree with everything she said or not, you have to admit she didn't back down. She didn't apologize for existing. She didn't make herself smaller to make someone else comfortable. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Maybe the real story isn't about what happened between Pamela and Joy. Maybe it's about what happens when women decide they're done performing, done explaining, done shrinking. Maybe it's about what happens when we finally say enough is enough. So, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and drop a comment below. Here's what I want to know. Do you think Joy Behar crossed the line, or was Pamela Anderson too sensitive? Let me know your thoughts.